Hey, it's Danny from ProjectManaverse.com, and in this video I'm going to explain how to write a communication plan or a comms plan. So let's get started. So first of all, let me set some context. As you can imagine, projects contain a vast amount of communication. If you add up all the emails and the instant messaging and the meetings and the one-on-one conversations, add all that up and you've got a huge amount of words and sentences and a huge amount of communication going back and forth on the project. So communication is really important on any project. And if you don't get communication right, that can have severe consequences to your outcomes. It can impact your plan, it can impact quality of your product, and it can make your life difficult as a project manager. So it's really important that communications are understood correctly. So in a project, there's usually two categories of communication. So number one is internal communication. That's within your project team. And then there's what we call sometimes external communications, not externally to the customer, but externally to the wider stakeholders of the project that aren't necessarily full-time in your project or directly involved in your project. It might be the business area that you're delivering to or the customer, but those are the more external customers and or external stakeholders. And a communication plan or a comms plan is usually reserved for those people. It's those external people that are not directly part of your project team, but they're more potentially customers or wider stakeholders. So the comms plan is there to capture key messages for those stakeholders. So that's the background. Let me now go through the 11 steps to writing a comms plan. So the first thing is get together with your team and have a workshop. Get together with your team and have a workshop or a long meeting, but you don't really want to do this on your own. You can have a stab at the first draft, but ideally you want to get together with some of your team members. You don't need everyone, but some key stakeholders within your team. Number two is create a table, and you probably want about, I think it's about 10 columns, but we'll come to that in a bit. And then you want, this is a summarized view. You want it as a nice simple document that can be shared easily and read easily. So 2 or 3 pages of A4 on a horizontal view is a nice way of doing it. And you want to have a table on each of those pages, and you can just use as much as you need as you go through this exercise. So that's number 2, create that table. Number 3 is the first column on the table. It's to decide the key message that needs to go out. So on each horizontal row of the communication plan, it's going to be designated for a particular message. So every row is a different message, and every row is a different communication, I suppose, to your stakeholders. So what you want to do with your team is decide throughout the project lifecycle, what are the key messages that you want to be sending to those stakeholders? And to give you some very common examples, it could be the context or project brief, just to let people know that the project is happening, and maybe some high level timelines. That's a key one. Number 2 could be when the project UAT phase is going to start, the UAT testing, user acceptance testing, because that is the phase where the business people that you're delivering to will probably want to get involved. So they need to align resources for that rough time in the calendar. Number 3 is the go live date, when you're actually going to implement your project. Those are some key common messages that you want to send out and include in your comms plan. So that was number 3. So number 4 is, what is the purpose of the comms? Why are you actually sending the comms? And that's the next column on there. So for each communication, think about what is the purpose of that comms, and what that allows you to do. Number 1 makes you think about, do you really need the comms in the first place? If there's no real purpose for it, then don't send it. But it also ensures that you're writing it in the right way when you come to writing the comms and producing the comms, because you might write a comms, send it out, but it doesn't actually achieve the purpose for which it was intended. So it's a good little control to make sure that you are writing it correctly. And I didn't say in the first point, in that first column, when you're writing the high level comms or the high level topic, you don't actually have to write the whole comms at this point. You're just actually saying what the general summary of the comms is, what that topic is, and you can write the detailed comms later. Okay, so next is number 5. When should you send out that comms? That's a simple one. Just get in a rough date and put it in that column. You need to look at your project plan and think about when those comms need to go out in the context of the wider project with what's going on at that time. Number 6 is who is the comms going to? Who is the comms going to? What stakeholders is it going to? Does it need to be everyone? Is it just a subsection of stakeholders? Is it just a few key people? So if you haven't done a stakeholder map yet in your project, it's probably worth doing that first, because a stakeholder map will really help with this exercise. And the stakeholder map is usually done at the start of the project. So ideally you do that before your comms plan, but that will help. And you might want to take an action in this meeting, give someone the action to create some distribution lists. So if you have, say, 50 people that a communication needs to go out to, you want to have a distribution list ready for that, so you can just send it out rather than trying to do it manually and adding each person one at a time, especially if there's several of those comms going to that group of people throughout the project. You want to have a distribution list ready, but that's up to you. So that's number 5. Sorry, that was number 6. Number 7 is, how is the message going to be sent out? So what's the format of the message? So number 7 is really, what's the format of the message? Are you going to do it via a meeting, a town hall session? Is it going to be an email? Do you have a project SharePoint that you're going to send out a link to? You need to agree what's the format of the message. Number 8 is, who will write the communication? So you want to establish that at this point. So when it comes to writing the communication, there's no arguments or there's no misunderstanding in terms of who should be writing the thing. So make sure you agree who's going to be writing it, so they're ready for it and they can start preparing to do that communication. Number 9 is, who will check or proofread the communication? You want at least one other person to check every communication that's sent out. And obviously, the more important the communication, the more it warrants having more and more people check it. But you might want to have a group of people that will check all the communications, because many perspectives is better than one. Number 1, not just for the grammar and the spelling, but also the tone of the message, and also to make sure the information is correct, you haven't got anything wrong. So make sure that's all agreed for each communication, who needs to check it, just to make sure it's right. And if you can get a good regular rhythm of that, and you have the same people doing it every time, that will make your life much easier. But I do appreciate that not every comms will require the same people to actually check it. Okay, next is number 10. Who will sign off the communication? So who will approve the communication? Again, you don't always need an approval for every communication. It all depends on what it is. If it's very important, very critical, or it's sensitive, if it's regarding changes in structure or changes in process, then you probably want a senior sign off on that one, especially if you're looking to reduce a department down to a smaller size or something along that nature. It's going to be very sensitive, so you need to make sure this goes through a lot of governance to get that communication signed off. So make sure you agree who is a sign off, and who's a sign off, and that's it basically. And the last one is, agree who will send out the communication. So someone needs to write it, someone needs to check it, and then someone needs to actually send it out or put it onto the SharePoint, or actually communicate it in the meeting that it's going to be communicated and delivered in. So make sure that's agreed there as well. Okay, so that's the video. What I'll do is I'll do a quick recap of those 11 steps, and I'll just prepare a one-pager slide so it's easier to remember. So number 1 is get together with your team and have some kind of workshop or meeting to do this. Number 2 is to create a table for your communications plan. Best to do it high level on a one-pager PowerPoint if you can, over a couple of pages maybe. Number 3 is decide the key message for each row on the table. You want, what's the key message? Number 4, what's the purpose of the message? Why are you sending it? Number 5, when are you going to send it? Make sure you've got a date in there. Number 6, who is the message going to? Who's the stakeholder or stakeholders that the message communication is going to? Number 7 is, what is the format of the communication? Is it going to be Excel? Is it going to be email? Is it going to be a SharePoint? Is it going to be in a meeting or a town hall? Next, number 8 is, who will write the communication? Get that agreed. Number 9 is, who will check the communication and make sure it looks fine and there's no spelling mistakes and the tone is right and the content is right. Number 10, who will approve or sign off the communication? And then number 11, who is actually going to send out or deliver the communication. Okay, that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. If you want to see more videos like this one, hit the subscribe button. And until tomorrow, please take care.